What the Tech is brought to you by Glasswire. Having network issues? Instantly reveal bandwidth hogs, malware, and privacy violating apps. Then block them. Head on over to glasswire.com to check it out. Hey everybody, welcome to What the Tech. I'm Andrew Zarian. Of course, I'm joined by Mr. Wonderful himself, Mr. Paul Thuride. How you doing, Paul?
Whew. It's been quite a day, Andrew.
It has been quite a day. It has been quite a year. It has been quite a 14 days, but we're here talking about something positive, and that's technology and the things that we love in technology. Depending on who you ask, it's positive, right? But this week, there's a lot to talk about. With tech, especially with tech. There's a tremendous amount of stuff to talk about. No worries, Paul.
I'm already bored.
It's okay. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for boring.
It's not you, I assure you.
No, but there is a lot to talk about. Obviously, Galaxy S21. Yep. I want to talk about this because a couple interesting things here with this. And obviously, we'll go through some of the CES stories because there's a lot coming out of CES. Was it, and this was a more of like a Andrew likes to know how Paul works kind of questions. Okay. Was this more convenient for you to cover CES than previous years?
It was the same, I would say. Obviously, not going there has its advantages, but as far as, my interaction with CES typically involves PC makers, and they have pre-show briefings and whatnot, which I attended. It was similar, I would say, to last year, previous years.
I got to tell you, I was watching a lot of CNET, what Ayaz was doing over there and what everybody was doing. They had some pretty good around the clock coverage. But I'm thinking like logistically, right? As a company, cost cutting measure. Why would anybody want to go back to CES and pay what they're paying to be there?
I've already experienced this at my own company, where we just had a very brief discussion about this, but it's going to be very common around the industry after this past year when companies have saved money not sending people around the world, around the country or whatever for various events. There's going to be a real rethinking of that and how important that stuff is. And then, for people like you and I, and for my company that cover the industry, there's going to be some thinking about how we can do that in this new era, in a way that is still useful and interesting and all that kind of stuff. So
I think like the coverage that, and I'm gonna credit CNET here, right? Because I think they did a very good job at organizing and keeping the I mean, the sheer organization that they put together for this, it looked really good, and they had coverage and press releases, and I think they were actually using vMix, and vMix call for their calls, which
they were doing like interviews and stuff. Okay,
which
cool.
And it looked good. Everybody looked uniformed, and they put the red background on everybody, and the thing. I rarely talk about what other companies are doing and stuff, but I got to tell you, it was done in a different way. But I got to tell you, if I'm Mr. CNET, I'm gonna look at this and say, how much money did it cost us to produce this, and how much money would it have cost us to be there? And what was the difference as far as ad revenue and viewership?
Yeah.
These things play a factor.
Right. The way that math's going to work is, and this is going to be true for everything, for all events and, every industry, anything that we do going forward, there's going to be some math, and there's going to be hybrid events, and sometimes you're going to go and sometimes you're not, and some groups are never going to go. And I think that the neat thing that will come out of this, and I go to a lot of Microsoft events, obviously, but CES is a big industry-wide event, or IFA or whatever. There are always advantages to being there in person. But I think because of the pandemic, these events will be more inclusive for people who aren't going to travel. And not just because of what happened during the pandemic, but because they were never going to travel anyway. Yeah. And so if you are cash strapped and you have to kind of look at, well, we can go to 1 or 2 events a year. We really got to be careful about what we do and make sure that it makes sense financially. These things are going to become easier because CES and Mobile World Congress and IFA and Microsoft Ignite and Apple and whatever, I think are going to be more inclusive to people who can't go, and that's better for everybody.
Yeah, I listen. I've always felt like I've gone to tons of like yourself, right? I've been to tons of these events. I used to go to NAB. I've done NAB. I've done a bunch of stuff. I not that I'm afraid to go, but like I don't really want to go anymore. That's me.
For me, it's laziness, right? Like I actually like being places. The act of getting there, which typically involves a train, to me is one of the most miserable experiences you can go through in life. And I got to say, with the pandemic and everything, doubly so, right? Because now not only I'm already distrustful of the idiots around me, but now you got to worry about people with COVID and that kind of baloney. And I just look, I hope to travel this year. I really do. I have very specific ideas about some things I'd like to do, but I do get stuck on the plane bit because to get anywhere interesting, you either have to take days in a car or you have to fly. And I don't know.
Yeah, I think it was an interesting experiment. I think CNET did a great job, so I just wanted to say that because a lot of my friends are there, right? Ayaz is one of my good friends, and he did a kick-ass job over there, so kudos to him. But let's talk about some of the tech that came out of here because it was a very interesting year, like you said. Everything was digital, everything was online. The sheer amount of money that was saved by companies, and that's going to be the big story here on where we go from here, because last year's CES was probably the largest one they've ever had, right? As far as attendance went, it was through the freaking roof. So the next year or two, we're going to start seeing things change. But the way that these companies are announcing products, you don't need a CNET, a CNET, geez. You do need
no, you
don't
need a
actually.
CNET. I couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree
you need
more.
a Thurrott.com, however. Thurrott.com, however, could get all the information out there, but you don't really need a CES for these announcements, right? Microsoft doesn't require a CES. Samsung doesn't. I mean, they did it, right? They did announce something, but they don't necessarily need to piggyback off these events, and we're going to see a lot of these hybrid, splintered events coming around. What did you think of the way that the information was coming down? Do you think this worked?
Yeah. So one of the things that's kind of interesting, and this is not something that most people would even be aware that was happening because it's for the press. Although many people have probably seen some of the results of it because publications like CNET probably will play some of these videos and things. They have virtual events, and sometimes when it's a multi-vendor event, you get these little shows that are attached to CES, for example, like Showstoppers and PepCom, which are for press. And the idea is you rent out a ballroom in some giant hotel in Las Vegas, and you bring in a bunch of originally tiny companies that maybe would get lost in the mix because CES is such a humongous show. And you give journalists and bloggers and things like that, free food and free drinks and everything. And that's why they go. But then they walk around and they talk to all the little companies. And every once in a while, there'll be like this little gem in there, And those events became so popular that some of the big players, Microsoft, HP, Lenovo, and others started joining in, right? And so they become like the tent poles of this kind of event. And it's just kind of a nice semi-casual way to go and learn about products and services and things, take pictures, get interviews, do all that kind of B-roll footage that you would always see it at CES and other shows. And starting with IFA, I think, but for me, the first time I noticed it was IFA, which was back in September. And then now again with CES, they've done these events virtually. Now, obviously it's not the same experience, right? But what's interesting is you basically it's a web page, right? And it's a grid of company names. And you click on a company like HP was one of the ones I visited, even though I'd already been briefed by HP. I just kind of wanted to see what their deal was. But they're all very standard, and you get all their PR. You get videos of all the products and stuff. So if you want to use that in your own footage or your own coverage or whatever. And then in many cases, you have an opportunity to actually speak with them live, right, during specified time. So it's a little bit like the show where you would walk up to the booth. And so, I did that with HP, and I already know those guys. I just did it, to kind of say hi. But, bloggers and journalists would kind of come and go, and they'd ask questions, and we'd all have a little chat or whatever. And it was okay. It's okay. it's not the same, right? But let's say CES comes around next year, and this time it's going to be in person. That we go back to semi-normal. They know that a bunch of people aren't going to show up. That those high, whatever the 100 something thousand people that showed up, last year are not coming next year. Maybe it's 50,000 or something. So I hope they keep doing stuff like that, where there's a virtual version of that stuff too. And that will really improve the situation for people like me who don't want to go or can't go or, financially just can't afford it. Right. Um, and I think that's going to be the big change. But then again, I'm losing track of your original question, but I mean, as far as like how this impacted me and people like me, honestly, aside from that stuff, it's very similar because a lot of the big companies already do these briefings ahead of time. And so we know that on a certain day at a certain time, Lenovo is going to announce this, and then on another day and time, they're going to announce this, and so on and so forth for all the other companies as well. And so you can be a little bit prepared. And I think that stuff still happens, right? I mean, it's, if you want to, if you have news that you want to write, companies are out there that you can find out what that stuff is ahead of time and still get it done.
There was some interesting, every year there's like a theme, right? You could kind of see where things are going, where, the big story was like
Yeah.
TVs, and then it became
Yeah,
smart homes, and then it was drones one year,
Sure.
augmented reality, virtual reality, things like that. This year's theme was very strange. Like when
I was
you
gonna
have
say, I'm curious what you think the theme was.
a
Yes.
lot of smart appliances, vacuum cleaners, things like that,
Mhm.
air filters, masks, smart masks. I saw one company
Yeah.
had a gaming mask. I don't know why you would need a gaming mask. And I'm
Well,
not talking like a mask on you. I'm talking like
no,
for
yeah,
COVID reasons.
well, because
mask.
you want to be able to, maybe you're going to an event where there are other people.
Maybe.
You want to be heard, so it has some kind of amplification for your voice. You want to be safe, so it has some sort of an air circulation or air dispersal kind of a deal going on. I mean, we're inventing all kinds of new stuff
Yeah.
because
Well,
of this.
I mean, the most
know.
it's actually funny. One of the I had picked one item and I just lost the page, but the most 2020 device was a laptop with a ring around the bezel to
Yeah,
illuminate your face, and it had 3
right,
webcams
right.
on it.
Yeah, yeah,
And I'm like, you know what? That is a
yeah.
response
I know.
device to.
I think stuff like that's a little gross. Um,
It's very niche.
It's yes, and it feels temporary. I hope it's temporary, right? I mean, look, there are certain things that happened last year with the pandemic that I think are positive for all of us and for the industry or whatever, right? The renewed focus on the PC, I think, is one of those really exciting things. Like you get lost. Yeah, we all use mobile devices and web apps and blah blah blah, whatever. But for productivity work, PCs are really important. And for what happened this past year, when you really think about it, PCs were what enabled some big percentage of the world to get work done without going into work. And
Mhm.
I know that sounds obvious, but that helps keep the economy running. I mean, I know not everyone can do it, and that's too bad, but um, I like that kind of a thing. And so, when you hear things like, well, there's been a run, you can't buy a webcam, or, they can't be found, or there's Chromebooks are all sold out, or
Video cards. You can't
PCs are
find
really
video
hard to find.
cards.
Yeah, whatever those things are, right?
Yeah.
The hope for that kind of thing should be like, this is temporary, and we'll keep building more, and we're going to do as much as we can to satisfy this demand. When you build something specially for like, we have a ring light built into a laptop. It's like, yeah, maybe maybe that's a little, I don't know, a little much.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've been, you and I have been podcasting for many, many years. Actually, you have a pretty, professional setup, but I mean, you can do this kind of show with
And you could do it
not
nothing.
you, but one can.
Yeah.
I mean, I can with fairly minimal equipment.
Yeah.
If you want to.
It's so some of the big highlights. No, you listen. I tell people all the time, don't look at the studio. This is overkill. This is
Yeah,
insanity.
yeah.
You don't need.
Well, no. I mean, you're the center of it. I'm just saying, you're doing whatever you do all week long. I kind of show up for an hour and a half on a Thursday, and
What do you think I do,
know,
Paul? I show up for an hour and a half on a
my
Thursday.
requirements. Yeah, I need a good keyboard more than I need audio video equipment.
But it is interesting how, and the more fascinating thing for me with CES is the forecasting that these companies do, right? Essentially, It's a bet.
Yeah.
They're hedging a
Yeah.
bet that this is going to be the trend this year due to
Right.
market research and other companies, competitors doing something, and they move
Mhm.
forward with it. And sometimes they're absolutely right. They hit the nail on the head. And other times
Yeah.
they totally, shoot themselves in the foot because it's a product that nobody wanted, or it's vaporware essentially. I spoke to a friend of mine that covers this stuff. It's not IAS, but he was saying that a lot of the companies that he spoke to,
Mhm.
the major companies out there, that this was going
Yeah.
to be the year of a lot of 8K devices being showcased. That the
8K.
8K, the big story was
Yeah.
going to be how 8K is now, becoming, now we've had 4K for a couple of years. Now we're going to start pushing 8K devices that are going to be on the market for a somewhat
Yeah.
understandable price range. But that didn't happen. I
Mhm.
mean, yeah, we did see 8K devices, but that wasn't the big story here. The big story was the shift for at-home devices, appliances.
Yeah.
Tons of company
Yeah.
have these ultraviolet lights that kill viruses and bacteria.
Yeah. Cases you can put a phone into that will kill, things. I don't know what they kill bacteria, like you said,
Yeah,
viruses, bacteria, whatever.
there was a ton of those.
Yeah.
Ton of
So
those smart kitchens, smart microwaves. Samsung, I think they introduced a robot that does your dishes.
look, we're all at home. The hope is that we won't all be at home as much. Like 6 months from now or a year from now, or whatever the time frame you think is. Um, some people are ecstatic that they can work from home. Some people who have been forced to work from home cannot wait to get into an office. I'm sure
Mhm.
there are people who have to go to an office that wish to God they could work from home. This is the but the we've jumbled the whole thing up, and everything's a little different. So I'm a little leery of things that assume nothing's going to change. You know, just as you should be leery of anything that assumes it's just going back to 100% normal, as it was, right?
Yeah.
I don't think either one of those things is going to happen. But we are all at home. I mean, one of the things I've noticed in my neighborhood is a lot of people seem to be getting work done in their homes, right? And I guess the theory there is, I mean, more than normal, especially in the winter.
Yeah.
Um, I think the theory is like we've all been home for like a year and we've gone nowhere. We've not traveled. We haven't gone on vacation. We haven't spent money on that stuff. Why don't we make this environment a little better because we're here, And that 8K thing you mentioned, I would say, even though it's not really happening right now, I think there's probably a good little market. It might be temporary for
Mm.
home theater upgrades. Like we'll get a slightly bigger TV. Maybe we'll do a home theater, 5-1 setup or that kind of stuff too. I think there's like work from home stuff, right? The laptops all sold out. There's like entertainment at home where, we all watch TV or whatever, but now it's like, you know what? We're not going to the theater. So why don't we get like a killer theater setup for home or something, or home exercise equipment, or, the things you were mentioning, like, I guess, uh, you know, I mean, don't we have more time? I mean, it's like people are cooking more, right? Because now we're home more.
Yeah.
So is this the time to come out with a service that brings food to your home? you know, it's kind
Yeah,
of a
that's
tough call.
interesting. It is a tough call.
There's probably a market for both.
Yeah,
I
I
don't know.
listen. I definitely think there's a market. I give an example. I just renovated my house
Yeah.
for the second year in a row. But during the
Right.
first half of this pandemic, I did the bathrooms, I did the second floor, I did my
Right.
bedroom, I did the backyard, I put a kitchen in my yard. You know what? Like because I'm
Mhm.
home way more, I'm
Right.
using these places a lot more. So I put the money in and I fixed it. But
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think we're going to see more of this. And yeah, that is the shift. The shift is that we're going into people spending their money on things like this. There's
I
a every
I
year you
mean,
see this toy. By the way, you know what the number one thing people are changing now?
no.
I think this is going to be a big year, and I wish I was joking. Toilets, these smart
Yeah.
like Japanese style toilets are
Sure.
becoming
Sure. Pamper
more
yourself.
mainstream. I know.
um,
Uh,
you know
who
what
doesn't
though?
want a
This is
bidet? You know?
Well, this not that specifically, but this stuff in general, right? And that including that the toilet thing. I mean, I think speaks to something that's very healthy, and not just because we're responding to a pandemic, right? But in this country especially, I think we've gotten out of whack when it comes to like a work life balance. And I've been working at home for over 25 years now. something I struggle with all the time because you're kind of always at work, But now that more of the world is struggling with that, maybe we'll make inroads into things like Americans actually taking weeks of vacation off and not having to constantly check in at work and feeling bad about missing, because they're missing out or they're worried about their job because, they're expected to work all the time. Or I hope that this has some positive outcomes. And if people are going to invest this year in things for the home, and it's some combination of something practical, like something that washes your dishes better, or smart lights, or something fun like a home theater or whatever. I mean, to me at a high level, it seems like there's the possibility of that being healthier,
Yeah.
than our lives before, right? Even though right now no one wants to be where we are right now, obviously. But I mean, maybe we come out on the other side collectively, healthier,
Possibly.
maybe.
I hope so.
After we've been drinking beer and eating Cheetos
I
for
know.
9 months straight.
Yeah. After that, I think we're gonna come back out healthy.
Yeah.
There is a lot that we could talk about. I do want to talk about a couple more things here, but before we
Mhm.
continue, I want to thank our great sponsor, and that's Glasswire. Listen, a lot of times we have network issues, right? Especially now that everybody's home. Your kids are home, your wife is home, your dog is home, you have cousins that visit. Everybody's using the internet. You're streaming Netflix here. Your kids are streaming another movie. Everything is all over the place. But sometimes you log on and you don't know where the problem is. And you think to yourself, how the hell am I going to figure this out? Well, here's a great solution, Glasswire. If you're having network issues, instantly figure out what the network issues are, what the bandwidth hogs are. Could it be malware? Is it a privacy violating app? You could block all of those things and get the information you want with Glasswire. It detects bandwidth hogs and apps that are slowing down your connection. You could see, instantly determine it. The software is absolutely beautiful. You can see what apps are phoning home without your permission. Instantly know if there's an unknown device that joins your Wi-Fi network. See the apps that are slowing down your connection in real time. Also, you could also use it to stay under your ISP's mobile data limits. That's another feature in there that a lot of people sent information over saying like, hey, I use it for this, which is pretty cool. You could also get alerts on sketchy apps, app changes to your DNS server without your permission. A lot of this stuff is happening in the background. A lot of people don't know, especially now. Listen, we're in COVID times, right? A lot of people are using way more data with Zoom and other kind of Microsoft Teams and things like that. You could see it on your PC and then your Android. I use it on my PC, on my production machine and everything else. It's a great piece of software. Go check it out. Go to glasswire.com. Download it now. If you want to find out about network issues, see what's hogging up your bandwidth, great. If you want to make sure there's no sketchy app that's phoning home without your permission, another great solution with this software. Also, Glasswire, one of the popular features on Glasswire is how they have a VirusTotal API built into the software, and it's 100% free for anyone. Just turn it on the settings. Then every network-related app can be analyzed with VirusTotal, all within the app. It's freaking awesome. You know what? That's going to be the thing. Glasswire. It's freaking awesome. Check out glasswire.com. Let them know we sent you, and get started with using the software. It's a great piece of software, and I highly, highly recommend it. So, Paul, let's talk about something that I'm pretty interested in. It's the Samsung Galaxy S21 lineup. It's a month earlier, right, than we expected. They right. I don't know why they did this, but Samsung is pushing forward with the next generation flagship lineup with the S21, and there's a couple products here. What do you make of this phone? I mean, we talk about it all the time whenever they come out, and where does Samsung stand in these, in the war of photography and overall features? I want to get your opinion on this.
I mean, for me personally, there's a little bit of fatigue. I bought a Galaxy S20 Ultra last, February, March, whatever that was, and subsequently gave it to my wife, who is now using that. And then in August, September, whatever timeframe, I got a review unit, Galaxy Note 20 Ultra from Samsung, for which I held on to for a couple of months. And I mean, is it already time for another one of these things? Like seriously? I mean,
Yep.
there's kind of a dulling sameness here. I mean, obviously there's some differences this year and some improvements for sure. Photography speaking, the Galaxy S21 and S21 Plus are virtually identical to their predecessors. So there's actually not a lot going on there unless there's some kind of software improvements, which by the way, of course it could be. And then the S21 Ultra, off the top of my head, the main lens, which is that weird 108 megapixel ginormous thing, I believe is the same. And then there were 3 other lenses, 2 of which are telephoto lenses. There's like 2 different telephoto lenses. So that's kind of interesting. I mean, I I am curious, I guess, but I don't know. I think I'm going to be skipping this one. Not because there's anything wrong with it, just because I've had so many Samsung experiences over the past year. It's like it just seems too soon, you know.
Yeah, I do think it's too soon. I don't know. I think they're releasing it for a reason here. I don't know why so
Well, okay,
soon.
you said that something like that, or like why, or for some reason, right? Why are they doing this now? Like, so we have to kind of guess. I don't think we're going to get a straight answer from Samsung. I suspect one of the reasons is they want to be the first to be with the 888 processor, right? The
Oh
Qualcomm
yeah,
888.
yeah, yeah.
And I think we're going to see a lot of devices happening over the next 30 to 60 days, and I think they just wanted to be first. I think that might be part of it. Um, some of the early speculation was that they weren't going to do a note this year, and that maybe this was going to be like their one big annual event. But Samsung has kind of come out and said, yeah, that's not actually it. And the Ultra is compatible with the S Pen, by the way, which I think is interesting. Doesn't come with it, which is a little tough in a device that costs, I think it's $11.99, like to start.
Yeah.
You don't throw in the $40 S Pen, really, but they don't. And they also, by the way, don't throw in a power brick, which is,
Yeah, everybody's
thanks
cutting
Apple.
everything now.
Yeah, yeah.
Good luck
I mean, at
charging your phone.
least, well, at least with a Samsung phone, if you're coming from a Samsung 2, 3 years old, whatever it is, you do have a USB charger, right? It may not be as fast as the modern ones, but it will work. I mean, the problem with what Apple did a couple of months ago is that they put it a USB to Lightning or a USB-C to Lightning cable, but everyone, the millions and millions of people of Apple chargers don't have those chargers. They have
Yeah.
a Lightning charger, right? A
Yeah.
5-watt Lightning charger. So you're virtually guaranteeing they're going to have to go out and spend whatever it is, 20, $30, um, on the charger. Anyway, let's not to get
So,
too far afield here.
another piece of story that came out a couple days ago, actually today, you
Yeah.
posted on TheRot.com, and I'm very curious about this. Google completes the Fitbit
Yeah.
acquisition, right? So
Yep.
this leaves a lot of questions regarding what do you do with Fitbit? What happens to Fitbit? And how Google
Yeah.
uses the data that Fitbit
Right.
has into whatever they're going to do. Obviously, they'll incorporate it in their phones, but a really cool smartwatch is where
Well,
this is probably leading into.
yeah, I hope so. So the big question to me is what happens to Wear OS, right? Does Fitbit become Google's wearables platform? I think it should probably. Although, for whatever it's worth, I mean, I thought Wear OS and Android Wear before that there's some good ideas there, and maybe there'll be like a meshing of those two things. But who knows? Maybe they just keep it separate. I guess we'll have to wait and see on that. I am. I think a lot of people were worried about the privacy implications of this. I am not personally worried about that. And of course, Google's come out and said, look, we're not going to use that data for advertising, et cetera, et cetera. So they've met the kind of regulatory concerns there. It took them a long time. This was like 14 months ago when they announced this, right? So I think it was like November 2019. And they got held up in a couple of places, including the EU, because there were concerns, again, about privacy. But we'll see. I mean, Fitbit has fallen on hard times in some ways compared to like Apple Watch, and Wear OS has never taken off, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
a big concern, I would say.
It is fascinating though how it didn't take off, considering
You know,
how many Android phones are in the market, right? Or in people's hands daily.
yeah, yep.
And
So
there hasn't been a
this is the
lead for this.
no, this is Android and Google have very much channeled Microsoft and Windows, right? Where you have this one incredibly successful product, and then you do all this other stuff that's based off of it, and most of those things don't really take off. Um, Android Wear, Wear OS now is a like a really dramatic example of that. Especially since there have been other products like Fitbit originally and now Apple Watch, which have been tremendously successful.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I mean, success in one thing doesn't guarantee success in the other. The other thing, by the way, too, is that Fitbit of course works on iOS, and that's going to continue, right? And Google has always been really good about putting everything on iOS. I think you could use a Wear OS device with iOS, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have one, but I believe you can.
Yeah. I
The three people who do that.
It is interesting. So there was a couple other products here that came out. I want to touch on some of these.
Hmm.
TCL really had a strong showing this year.
Yeah.
And
Right.
it seems like they're gearing up to become uh not so much a low level
Yeah.
product manufacturer, I guess. They're kind of entering that mid range, upper mid range market when it comes to their devices. Um, they showed off some smartphones, obviously, that they're looking into doing. But what I find the approach interesting, that now a lot of these companies that we looked at and we said like, oh, they're lower end. Vizio, great example. Vizio is a great example of this. Vizio
Yeah.
about 5-6 years ago was considered a lower mid range product that had more bang for your buck, and now they've become just as expensive as anybody else on the market. The TV
Yeah.
market is very
That's sure.
bizarre because everybody has 18 products on the market right now. So you got to kind of pick and choose which one you're going with. But
Hmm.
TCL now has entered the game as being a very strong competitor, and that you're not in, you would have it as your main television. Like I have a Hisense here in my office. I'm a little bit crazy when it comes to the quality, with the black levels and things like that and the audio of the TV. So I tend to go with a higher end device, but this is more than enough what I have.
Right.
So, do you
Well,
think there's a
this is
shift happening there with brand recognition? People just don't care anymore. They just buy what they could afford.
Yeah, I think this is just a natural evolution. I mean, Vizio is a great example. This was the one a few years ago we would have pulled out. Like, look at these guys. They actually make really good devices. They're super inexpensive compared to the Sony Trinitrons or whatever, the LG and Samsungs and so forth. And now, of course, they're established. We talk about this, you and I. You can compare it to cars. Back in the late '80s when Hyundai first showed up, and then Kia showed up, and at first these companies were kind of laughed at, and were poor quality. But, that was the case too with the Japanese car companies when you go back to probably the '60s, early '70s, Honda and Toyota and so forth. At the time, they were considered little cheap pieces of junk, but then people
Yeah.
started seeing the value in them. They improved, et cetera, et cetera. So,
Listen, isn't Hyundai teaming up with Apple?
yeah, supposedly, yeah, according to reports, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, things are
Yeah, they
changing.
make great cars.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. They're really
um,
good cars now.
yeah. Yep.
So something that kind of went under the radar, okay?
Hmm.
Since we're on the TCL topic, and I think under a normal circumstance, if this was demoed properly, it would have gotten some hype. But TCL is introducing a 1080p OLED display a wearable display essentially. Did you
Yeah,
see this? It
I think
gives
so.
you it
This is the
gives you
thing that
a
wraps around.
yeah, it gives you a
Yeah.
140-degree field of view. I also
Right.
read it's the equivalent of you being in viewing a 140-inch display. I don't know if one was a typo compared to the
Yeah.
other one, because this one says 140-degree field of view, and the other one said equivalent to a 140-inch display.
Well, you
Um,
must have done this, right? You can do this at home. This is a fun thing we can all try later today. Sit on the couch,
yeah,
look at whatever size screen you have over there on the wall or on the far side of the room, and hold up your phone, which has a 6-inch something display, and then move it back and forth until it's the same size as the TV.
yeah.
you know, I mean, yeah, you
I,
can kind of imagine how this could work.
so I
You know,
find this really interesting for a number of reasons.
yeah,
One, they've attempted this for how many? I mean, my entire childhood, I remember people talking about
right,
stuff like this,
right.
right? Oh, see, this one again says, mimics the effect of a 140-inch screen from 4 meters away.
4 meters.
Yeah,
4 meters is a lot of meters.
it is a lot of meters.
So 12 feet, I guess.
Yeah. So according to this person, this is the only one that I've read that somebody tried it. This is Mashable
Yep.
India. Okay. So this person
Okay.
said, I tried the prototype about 2 years ago at IFA in Berlin and remember having the ability to watch a movie while still comfortably taking notes on my phone and hearing conversations around me. It was an so even though it's an immersive experience, you could still safely wear them during a commute like a train or a flight and still be not totally distracted, completely distracted. That's the first one that I've read in a new article that somebody had hands on. Listen,
Hmm.
I think this is possibly, and I'm going to take a safe bet on this. I think this could be a big selling item in about a year.
Yeah.
These kind of
To me, it
wearable
does.
displays.
Right. If it feels like something to think about for the future, it would be like if I'm sure Samsung 2 years before they came up with some fold device showed a screen folding and said, "Look, we're going to do this someday," and everyone's like, "That'll be fun."
Yeah.
We're still not quite there.
Yeah, I listen, here's the other thing. Long-term long-term usage of these devices on our faces, right? Everything is eventually leading to that display, which we didn't
Yeah.
really see. I If this was a year ago, I would have said, next year we're going to see more of these smart glasses where, it's doing what we envisioned eventually that it could do, and then that leads to the contact lens, right? And then that leads to the
Hmm.
chip in our heads and then we become full-on cyborgs, which is fine. I'm okay with that at this point. You know,
Right. Yeah.
anything for
Well,
innovation. But
okay.
we didn't really
Sure.
see those smart glasses this year, and I think a lot of it has to do with
Uh,
deciding
well, we saw. Yeah.
what R&D you want to allocate money to that makes sense in the middle of a pandemic. So
Right.
I would say that not that I was looking forward to it, but in the natural progression of things, we're hearing,
Hmm.
Apple's been working on one and Google's working on one and everybody's working on one. I thought natural progression would bring us to at least some other manufacturers showing off some pretty cool smart glasses out there.
I mean, there were a couple of small smart glasses type things, but yeah, I
Nothing
think the
innovative though.
reality. Yeah, the reality of the pandemic is we have more pragmatic concerns right now. Um, and not all of them can be solved by technology. I mean, there's a huge swath of the public that's lost their jobs or have had other job related problems. So, you know, yeah, flying cars and augmented reality, whatever. Yeah, sure, it's always interesting, but I mean, right now it's like we're just trying to put food on the table and live day to day. So, I like I said, I mean, there's maybe a healthy refocusing that will occur because of this going forward.
I
The
hope so.
CES used to be a lot of stupid shit. A lot of
Yeah.
stupid shit.
Oh yeah. I mean, is the
You know,
porn section still there or no? That's gone. They got booted.
I'm sure it's if you got your AR glasses, you could probably have a porn experience
You can
if
find the
that's
porn
what you. For.
experience.
Yeah, yeah,
I
porn decks or whatever.
Yeah. A couple other things that we saw that I thought was really stupid. Did you see the e-ink laptop where the backside of the
Yeah,
laptop is a
yeah.
full-fledged e-ink display? I didn't know that we're still playing around with e-ink. I didn't
If
know it was
e-ink,
still a selling point.
yeah, I mean, e-ink is it would be interesting if it's like if it could have color, if it could have higher refresh rates, and then at that point you're like, well, it's just a display. I mean, there's technology occurring with standard display types, like Dell does this, where they use a hardware means of removing the blue light that's emitted from the LED or whatever technology they're using, and that solves a lot of the problem with the lights in our faces and all that kind of stuff. And as awesome as an e-ink display can be for certain things, it lacks in so many areas that it just has never taken off as kind of a mainstream technology. And I think what's going to happen is the mainstream device or display types in this case are going to just improve to the point where it's like, well, what's the difference at this
Yeah.
point? It's like, well,
Okay.
this thing's better for your eyes. It's like, yeah, but this one rolls up or crunches up into a ball, and I can, throw it in
Rollable
my pocket, and
displays.
then I whip it out, and it's like 105 inches
That
long or something.
Yeah, that's the other
I
one.
mean,
Rollable displays, right? That was a big
yeah,
thing this year.
yeah.
Um, I don't know. I think a lot of the perception of these is kind of messed up because people didn't get any hands-on experience with these. A lot of these
Yeah,
things
for
that they were
sure,
saying.
for sure.
One thing I was shocked we didn't see more of.
Mhm.
Why can't I switch today? What's going on with me? I can't switch the cameras today. One thing I was shocked was I thought there would be every company in the world would have a new webcam this year, right?
Yeah.
You can't
right.
even find a webcam. I mean, really,
Yeah.
it's very difficult. It's gotten to the point, and I think it's hysterical. Amazon has essentially knockoff Logitech webcams. They look just like the Logitech webcams, but they're not Logitech. They're whatever brand. So I thought we would see a lot.
A Logitech. I bought
What
one
you
from
got?
Amazon, a Brio, but I ended up returning it. But I bought it and just got it, and it like it was. I don't know if I lucked out or something.
Is that
but-
it's a 4K one, right?
Yeah. Well, 4K, 30 frames a second. It's
So what didn't you like about it?
Didn't improve anything, right? So the reason I got it was a lot of people complain that my video looks kind of blurry or whatever. And, like looking at what we're doing here, to me, like my video looks fine. And this is mostly like with Brad, like we do First Ring Daily, and it's just, I look really blurry, and I do, but anyway, I was like, you know what, I'm going to solve this problem. I just got a new webcam. I have multiple versions of the webcam I'm using now, which is a Logitech C920.
You want me, I can fix your problem in $100. In
Okay.
$100, I can fix it. Okay. So
Yeah.
order the Elgato Camlink 4K. Okay.
Oh boy.
It's a USB 3 capture device. You could do 1080p 60 or 4K 30. You don't need to do 4K because you're not streaming 4K. But you have that really nice camera, right?
Yep.
You still have that Canon. The Canon connects right into this.
Oh,
and
the Canon.
Yeah. This
Oh,
goes in
yeah,
via
you're right.
USB. Via USB.
Well,
Paul.
okay, but see, now we get to the situation where I'm going to have like this professional camera in my office on a tripod with this other thing I have to connect to my computer, and it's like, how clearly do you need to see me? I'm not that great looking.
I
Like,
think people need to see. I think people need to see Paul Thurrott's handsome face in 1080p.
Okay.
If
I
you
think
guys
this is
agree
good.
with it, I want you guys all to tweet Paul today, right?
Okay,
That are
yeah,
hearing
thanks.
this at Thurrott. I want you to tweet him and tell him you want to see his handsome face in 1080p. That's all.
Okay. If I could appear as a cartoon, like an anime thing,
You want me to
that would
animate
be
you?
fine. Yeah. Do some
Dude,
kind
but this
of
thing is awesome, right? It's
watercolor
$100.
painting.
$114
What is it called?
bucks.
Elgato.
The Elgato Camlink 4K. I'll put it in the show notes for people that want it. But it's a USB 3 capture device. It's like I have one. It's like, where is mine?
But it will connect to that Canon thing.
And you just connect it via USB, and you're good. Done. It
So
does all
that's
the work.
nice. Yeah, remember before we had to have
Pain
this
in the
big
ass. Yeah.
PC with a PCIe card or whatever it was.
Yeah. So what Paul was doing with Brad for First Ring Daily, we had set up a Canon. I think it was a Canon HFG40. Really nice, prosumer. It's a consumer webcam, but it's on the higher end of the consumer line. And then that would go into a capture device that was inside the computer. It was a PCIe Blackmagic Intensity Pro
that sounds
4K.
right. Yep.
And the problem with it is like, you know what it is? Remember your dad, the TV would like act up a little bit and your dad's like, hold on, I'll fix it. And you hit the top of the TV and you're like, everything's working now. The reception is perfectly fine. Paul would have to do that to get this thing to work every time.
Yeah, it was not good.
You can't, sometimes it would connect, sometimes the black screen.
Yeah, this thing has been sitting in a box for 3.5 years. It's
So
sad.
let's get the
expensive.
Elgato, dude. Get the Elgato Camlink, $100. Pop it in.
Yeah, I'm not paying
You'll
for
look,
this.
You'll look unbelievable.
You know what? If my work wants to buy this, I would consider it. But even still, like I said, then I have to. Then I already have too much crap in my office. Dude. Like,
you don't want the camera hooked up. I get it.
I just don't. It's just too much.
Yeah, I get it, man. I get it. So the Brio, the Logitech Brio, is $183 right now. It's $200. It's a $200 webcam.
It's a $200 camera. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not cheap.
It did not fix the problem, which is amazing. It's like spend $200 and then see no difference whatsoever. Was not appealing to me. So yeah, I ended up returning it, but it just didn't, and like I said, like to me, what I'm looking at here, as far as the quality goes, seems fine. Like it's better than it is with.
I'm going to give a great piece of advice here. Don't get scammed into buying a $40 webcam. Okay. A lot of people getting scammed into buying these cool looking, it looks like a Logitech, but it's not, webcam on Amazon. There's tons of these now. I mean, even to the point that they're using they use the number, like Logitech C920. The 920 is one of their webcams. these companies are using those numbers. Like this is the Angtube 920, and it looks just like the Logitech.
That's funny. So,
So
but they're crappy.
I've ordered like 3 of these to test out at random companies, and they all look the same. Absolute garbage. They all look terrible. So do
Right.
yourself a favor. Spend like the $40 more. I'm telling you. I know I don't like telling people to spend money, but spend the money.
Right.
Spend the money. Also, there are other USB to capture
Like
cards out there
interfaces
right
or
now.
whatever. Yeah, no, there
There's
must be,
tons
right?
of them. I mean, there's
yeah.
one, like I'm looking at one right now, $24. I don't know how good this is, but
Yeah.
it's something.
Right.
I think there's a bunch of these actually. I used a
really,
Mac. I used a $300 one, and there was really no difference between the $100 one and the $300 one.
I mean, this thing is small. It's neat that you could bring this with you and use it on a laptop if you wanted to, I guess. But
you still need a
it would
tripod.
make a little more sense if you had like a DSLR camera and you were traveling it with it anyway or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
I think, but that was the biggest surprise for
that
me.
Canon thing it's a big camera,
That was a big surprise that we didn't see more announcements coming from Logitech. And listen, Microsoft was working on a new webcam. Remember that, Paul?
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
literally, I got an
the
email.
Mist of time. Yeah, vaguely I remember that. Yep.
I got an email from a viewer of ours that outlined the whole thing out to me. And just shift in allocation of importance didn't make.
Yeah.
It didn't make that.
Well, I mean, in Logitech's case, I mean, you could make the argument like one of the things they should have done if they didn't was just make more. Like you don't even have to improve things; just keep making more of what you have. Like the demand is there for sure. But even webcams, it's funny. Like when you think about a laptop that has like this tiny little camera at the top, and of course these are 720p. They're usually pretty crappy, but sometimes they're okay. A webcam is a fairly big device, compared to like a little camera thing. It seems like you could make a slimline version that would be better with a laptop, especially. But given how high quality smartphone cameras are.
Yeah, that is interesting, right? Smart. Listen,
Yeah, I don't know.
the camera I have on this is better than any webcam.
Oh yeah, and if we did this
but
recording
it's a lot thicker.
on my phone, it would probably be fantastic. Which, by the way, I have experimented with as well, using my smartphone as like a webcam for podcasts, but it's so complicated.
So did you do it with the connection or you did wirelessly?
I think the one I did was it was an iPhone, and I believe it was wired.
Oh yeah, I think the app I used was Cameo. I think it's Cameo.
I feel like if you said what I used, I would remember it. I don't think it was Cameo.
I think Cameo is for the Mac. I can't remember what the PC version was.
It's like if you were to Google use your iPhone as a webcam or something like.
Yeah. Now you can.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think that's the best answer. You want to get a good, we were talking about podcasting and stuff. I would just hook this up and just use this.
Right.
Really?
Right.
You're going to get a way better
Epic Cam?
It could be.
Epic Cam, that might have been it.
It could be.
I don't know. I think I even paid for it.
Yeah, I paid for Cameo. I've used it twice, but I paid for it.
I never got it to work reliably. It was upside down too. It was just
was it really? Flip the camera, Paul. That's all you got to do.
I mean, of course, but anyway. Yeah,
so before we wrap it up here, we got a preview. Paul posted on the website today. Quick hands-on with Windows 10X for single screens. What do you think of this? And what's the latest with Windows 10X? Where are we right now with this?
Yeah, so this was a leak, right? Not something Microsoft released. This is all kind of rumor based, with the understanding that the sources on this are pretty good, and I think this is exactly what's happening. But a year ago, Microsoft planned to release Windows 10X as an alternative to Windows, like we'll call mainstream Windows, whatever. And they were advertising it, remember, for 2-screen devices for some reason, right? That was not the original intent of this product, so that always confused me. And then late last year, they finally, or maybe it was early this year, they publicly, I'm sorry, last year is this year, early last year, early 2020, they admitted that it wasn't going very well, and that one of the big components of this thing was this container-based architecture that would let them run Win32, meaning desktop Windows applications. Lots of compatibility problems, lots of performance problems. So they decided to recast this back to its original intent, which was a Chrome OS competitor with a streamlined user interface that would only run web apps and store apps, right? Not desktop apps. And it would ship on single screen devices. And then more recently, then, the year kind of went by, right? And late in 2020, we heard that all of a sudden they were getting ready to ship this thing. It would not be something you could buy in a store. It would just come on new devices, which would be like PCs, laptops for the most part. And the thing that just leaked is a near final build of this product. So it kind of shows you what it looks like and how it works. And that's kind of interesting just to play with. And if you're familiar with Chrome OS, I'll just say it's very, very, very similar to that. Simple UI. The icons are kind of centered on the taskbar. When you click the start button in the middle, this almost full screen thing pops up with all of your applications and all of your recent documents. Everything runs full screen. Cannot run desktop applications as rumored. If you're familiar with the Windows 10 built-in desktop or store applications, those are all there and work the same, except they run full screen. Is this thing necessary? To Microsoft, it might be, right? Chrome OS has been very successful in the education sector, and I think they want something there that their OEM partners, the PC makers, can sell. And so maybe that's the real reason for this. But as a mainstream, PC-like operating system, I don't know. It's not. There's not a lot there.
So who is this? Who's going to buy this? Yeah. I think if we're competing against a Chromebook, you're obviously looking at bulk, mass purchases from education, right? I guess
right.
that's the
supposedly
market.
The initial market is education. It's what Microsoft calls commercial. Commercial is businesses, education, and government, right? But primarily education. It's not that I mean, you probably will be able to go into a Best Buy in June or something and buy a Dell that has this on it, like for $300 or $400 or something. I'm sure that's probably going to happen, but really it's for big purchases from educational institutions and an alternative to Chrome OS, right? And so, like why might a school not want to use Chrome OS? It's hard to say. I think a lot of people have been sold on Chrome OS because it's so simple and easily managed, and it kind of meets the needs of that environment really well. But Microsoft is a trusted name, and I could imagine the HPs, Dells, and Lenovo's of the world would be more inclined to work with them than with Google.
Yeah,
and would put these things out, and we'll see. And then there's this hope for the future in V2, which would be like late this year or maybe early next year, that Win32 desktop app compatibility comes back and actually works. And if that's the case, then what you're talking about is something that can run Windows applications, but has a much simpler UI. I mean, there's some appeal there, right? For normal people. Just, you want to open the thing up, have it come on instantly, and, you sign in with your thumbprint or whatever, and you get to work, and there's not a lot of nonsense going on. Windows is busy, because it's old fashioned and it's been around for a long time. So right now it's like, it's not quite there yet, but it's interesting. I like that they're trying, I guess.
Yeah. I think I get it, but maybe this is building to a whole new infrastructure. Like you said, you don't have to deal with legacy. And eventually they're going to have to evolve. Everybody's going to have to evolve. I mean, Mac OS has to evolve. You kind of see where they're headed. Yeah. But
I don't know the Mac as well. And to me, I look at what Apple did with Big Sur, and I like it. Visually, I know some people like, it's a little bright and colorful and all that kind of stuff. I happen to like it. I don't think that part matters, but the fear with Mac OS and the fear with Windows certainly would be that in simplifying something, you lose stuff, right? And I will say, I don't think Apple has lost anything if you compare Mac OS Big Sur with like 2-3 versions ago. I suspect everything is basically there, right? It's not like they just got rid of stuff. But Windows 10X absolutely gets rid of stuff. So, it's not just simpler. Like there's less there, and that can be appealing. But for people who have certain expectations, power users, normal users, I guess. I mean, it might be a little off-putting.
Yeah.
Because it's so simple.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. I'm curious.
Yeah, we'll see.
I'm curious who uses this. All right, guys.
It looks interesting.
It is time to wrap it up, Paul. Look at that. Nice and quick.
I'm going to crawl into bed and die. So thank
Good
you
for you.
that.
I know. It's a lot going on, but
it's been quite.
Listen, it's been quite a quite a year already, and we're gonna continue on. So it is what it is. What are you gonna do, guys? Go to our website, gfknetwork.com. Subscribe to us. We're everywhere podcasts are available. For all things Paul, go to Thurrott.com, one of my go-to websites every single day. You could also catch the show on Thurrott.com. Paul posts it right on there. Anything coming up, Paul? Are you working on anything?
Yeah. Well, in addition, so I'm trying to figure out how to handle 10X for one thing, right? There is a lot going on there. I'm kind of curious about that. I'm switching up how we do the book, and I think maybe in about a week I'll be ready to talk about that a little bit more.
Cool.
But yeah, that's been a big focus for me over the past several days. I'm finally, after years of hedging, have kind of come up with a plan, I think, for moving the Windows 10 book forward. So we'll talk about that later.
Very cool. Very cool. All right, guys, that's it for this week. See you later.